All right, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling IELTS.
The IELTS.
Yeah, you know, that exam that everyone needs if they want to go study abroad or
Right.
work in another country.
I get it.
So our listener is aiming for a band 9.
Wow.
That's the top score. Right.
Yeah.
And get this, to help us out,
Yeah.
they actually sent us a whole podcast episode on how to ace the test.
Wow, that's dedication for sure.
Talk about a keen learner. But
Yeah.
don't worry, we got this.
Yeah, we'll break it down.
We're going to pull out all the key points from that episode, add in our own expert thoughts.
Make this deep dive.
Yeah, make it super valuable.
Love it.
Okay, so first things first.
Yeah.
IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System.
Right.
And it's basically like...
It's the ticket.
It's the golden ticket, yeah.
If you want to study...
To study, work, live.
Yeah, anywhere English is spoken.
Exactly.
You pretty much need this.
You need that good score.
Yeah.
Okay, so the podcast we got mentioned the 4 sections.
Oh, yeah, the classic 4.
Listening, reading, writing.
And speaking, of course.
Pretty standard stuff, but what's unique about each one? Like, what should we really watch out for?
Well, they all test your English, obviously, but in totally different ways.
Right.
Like, take listening.
Okay.
They throw all sorts of accents at you.
Oh, accents.
Yeah, British, American, Australian, you name it.
It's not just understanding the words.
As a whole.
It's like the music of it.
Yeah, the music, the nuances.
Oh, man. Accents can be a minefield.
Oh, tell me about it.
One time in Scotland, I thought my friend was asking about my cat,
Uh-huh.
but he was actually asking about my coat.
Oh, no.
We both ended up laughing.
I bet.
But it shows you, like, how accents can totally change how you hear things.
But that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Which is why that podcast was so big on daily practice.
Yeah.
Using different kinds of English materials.
But just immersing yourself.
Immersing yourself, yeah.
Okay, so listening to more English is a good start.
Definitely.
But how do we make that practice really count?
It can't just be background noise.
Right. Got to be active.
You have to be engaged.
So what should we do?
Have you ever tried shadowing?
Shadowing.
You repeat what you hear, trying to copy the pronunciation, the intonation.
Ooh, like a workout for your ears.
Totally.
Okay, I'm adding shadowing to my list.
Good.
Now, what about taking notes while you listen?
Ah, good question.
Full sentences or just keywords?
You know, it really depends.
On the person.
Yeah, on what works for you.
Okay, so no one right way?
Exactly. Try both. See what sticks.
Good advice.
And that actually applies to a lot of IELTS prep.
Interesting.
Yeah, finding what works for you is key.
Makes sense.
Now, the podcast mentioned the reading section too, right?
Oh, yeah, those passages can be intense.
Yeah, walls of text sometimes.
And then there's writing with that essay and the visual stuff.
Right, like describing a graph or something.
It feels like they're testing totally different skills with each part.
They are, and that's important.
Why is that important?
Because each section gets its own score.
Ah, so you can't just ace one and...
Exactly. Balance is key.
Gotcha. Got to be well-rounded.
You got it.
Okay, let's go back to listening for a sec.
Sure.
The podcast was all about practice, which we get.
Right.
But are there any specific strategies
Ooh, good point.
besides just, listening to more English?
This is where it gets tricky.
Okay, I'm listening.
The IELTS loves to paraphrase.
Paraphrase.
They take a sentence from the audio and twist it around in the question.
Ooh, sneaky.
They might change the word order, use synonyms, stuff like that.
So it's not just recognizing words, it's understanding.
It's about the meaning.
Even when it's dressed up differently.
It's
That's a whole other layer.
It does.
So we should practice that too.
Absolutely.
Like, how do we practice that?
Try this.
Yeah.
Listen to a short clip, anything, news, a podcast.
Uh-huh.
Then try summarizing it using totally different words.
Ooh, that sounds tough.
It is, but it'll train your brain.
My brain is already hurting.
I know, right?
But it's good, I get it.
It's super effective.
All right, on to reading.
On to reading.
So the podcast was really big on speed and vocab.
Yeah, those are crucial. They're nuances.
Nuances.
Like speed reading is great,
Yeah.
but some IELTS passages are super dense.
Right, like you need to
You need to slow down.
and really absorb it.
Absolutely.
And vocab isn't just memorizing word lists.
It's about how words are used.
In context.
In context, exactly.
You might know what a word means, but
can you figure out its specific meaning in that passage?
that reminds me of this time I was reading a science article and I totally misinterpreted a key term because I didn't think about the context.
Yeah, that happens.
It messed up my understanding of the whole thing.
So expand your vocab, but don't
Yeah.
just cram definitions.
Right.
Read actively. See how words change meaning depending on what's around them.
Like you're a word detective,
I like that. A word detective.
uncovering the clues in the text.
Exactly.
Speaking of clues, the podcast mentions skimming as a technique.
Skimming, yes.
Do you have an example, like how to skim effectively for IELTS?
Sure. Imagine a passage about history, right?
Okay, history.
When you skim, you're not reading every word. You're like a historical detective, standing for dates, names, big events.
Creating a map,
Yeah, a map in your mind.
showing the key parts.
Exactly. Then you can go deeper into the specifics if you need to.
So work smarter, not harder.
Always.
And you know what? This makes me think.
What's that?
What about our listeners' own reading habits?
Oh, that's smart.
Like, do they already read news, fiction, whatever?
Tapping into what you already like.
Makes it less like studying.
Yeah, more like exploring.
Okay, let's hit the writing section.
Yeah, right. Writing?
The podcast gave a good overview of task 1 and task 2.
The 2 tasks, yeah.
But can we get into specifics, like real examples?
Definitely.
Really understand what they expect.
Okay, so for task 1, imagine you get a graph showing social media use over the past decade.
Oh, that's relevant.
You wouldn't just list all the numbers. You'd
Yeah.
become a storyteller.
Ooh, I like that.
Finding the big trends.
Like, is social media use going up or down?
Exactly. Are there any huge jumps or drops?
What might those mean?
Exactly.
So interpreting the data, not
Just
just...
not just spitting it back out.
Right. Telling a story.
Yes, and drawing conclusions.
Now for task 2, what if they ask you to talk about the pros and cons of online learning?
Ooh, good one.
How do you grab the reader's attention?
Without being too casual,
Right, it's still formal.
what if you started with a question?
A question.
Like, is the traditional classroom dying?
Ooh, provocative.
Or a relatable story.
Right.
Remember those days scrambling for a seat in a packed lecture hall?
I do remember those days, yeah.
Everyone does.
It pulls you in.
Yeah, sets the stage.
Okay, now the podcast was really serious about grammar and spelling.
Oh, yeah, and for good reason.
They can make or break your score.
Absolutely.
And there's this one mistake that apparently trips a lot of people up.
Really? What is it?
Articles.
Articles. Like a, and, they.
Those little things, yeah.
I seem so small,
Yeah.
but they're crucial.
Right,
They're like
right.
ninjas, secretly affecting how clear your writing is.
Wow, ninjas, okay.
Master articles, and it's a game changer.
All right, speaking section time.
Speaking, the one everyone dreads.
The podcast was all about confidence for this one.
Yeah, confidence is huge.
Why is it so important?
Think about it.
Uh,
A confident speaker just draws you in.
Their words flow,
They sound clear, their message comes through,
even if their grammar isn't perfect.
even if it's not perfect.
It's like the difference between mumbling and a powerful speech.
That's a great way to put it.
When you're confident,
You own the room.
you command attention.
The podcast also said to record yourself practicing.
Oh, I hate hearing my own voice.
I know, but it helps.
But what should we be listening FOR? Besides cringing, I mean,
First, your pace.
they,
Are you talking too fast, too slow?
then.
Pauses.
Okay.
Are they natural? Or are you saying, and, all the time?
And,
Vocabulary.
like, am I using the same words over and over?
Exactly. Are you being creative?
Wow. This is like having a personal coach.
Right in your pocket.
I like it.
Now, the podcast focused on practicing topics.
Which makes sense.
But there's another trick.
A trick. Tell me.
Mastering linking phrases.
Linking phrases. Like what?
However, on the other hand, in addition to,
Oh, those sound fancy.
they make you sound more natural.
But is that all?
And they buy you thinking time
Thinking time.
while you're speaking.
So instead of, I can say,
You can say, however,
and that gives me a second to think.
to gather your thoughts.
Clever.
Win-win.
Fluency and coherence.
You got it.
Okay, last thing for this section, time management.
Time management, so important.
The podcast was really stressing that.
And rightly so.
But how do we manage time strategically, like in the IELTS specifically?
It's not just about finishing fast.
It's about being smart.
Knowing where to spend your time.
Give me an example.
In the reading section, some questions are worth more points.
Ah, so prioritize those.
Don't get stuck on the little ones.
Work smarter, not
It's
harder.
always the best strategy.
We've covered a lot of ground today,
We have!
from the basics of IELTS,
To some really cool strategies.
but there's more to come.
Oh yeah, much more.
We'll be back soon to keep diving deep into the IELTS.
Can't wait.